Welcome back to the introduction of FNC Charts version 2.0. Let's have a look how you can load data into your charts. FNC Charts has been built with rapid application development in mind. Drop the control on the form, adjust the look and feel, load data from a database, a file, or any other data structure, and everything is fully customizable, not only at design time, but also at runtime. And the designer is also accessible to you at design time, and you may publish it for your end users at runtime. You can load data into your chart using various data sources that are bundled with a product. It is possible to load from an array and various text file formats. For example, comma or tabulator separated files, and the now very popular JavaScript object notation, JSON. Loading from databases is also possible using the database adapter, which makes it easy to access any T-data source component in the VCL or FireMonkey, for example. And there is the grid adapter, which allows you to reflect changes that are made inside of a grid immediately in the chart. This video will focus on the two big groups at the beginning, arrays and text file formats. Most people learn best with examples, so let's get started. The chart is a line chart, and I named it as such, line chart. This button here shows us how to load the data into the chart using an array. However, before we look at the actual implementation, how to assign the data to your chart, let's look at a property that is essential when loading data. FNC Chart is a very flexible component. However, its default options usually get you started, and then you just need to fine-tune everything. Loading data into your chart is no different from that. The property default load options allows you to customize how data is being processed when it is being loaded into your chart. Let's look at it. First, clear series means that all series of the chart are being cleared before the data is being read from the data source, no matter what data source it is. And let me emphasize this, default load options is being used whenever you load data. It is being used for arrays, comma separated files, JSON. This is the basic set of options that's being used. As long as you don't specify something yourself, default load options is being used. Then there's properties that allow you to specify the value type of each of the axes. For example, the X values format type lets you specify normal, float, or date time. And the same also for the y-axis. In addition to that, you can specify how the numbers, in case you have numbers, this does not apply for date time values, how to format these values. For example, the default for X values is not to show any decimals, and for Y values to show 2 decimals. With this, let's look at how to load data from an array. First, we customize the default load options in code. This is possible as well, of course. You don't have to set everything in the object inspector. You can make slight modifications in code and modify the default set. Here we specify that the X values are date time values. The first parameter of load data from array specifies the series that the values and the X values should belong to. The first series has the index 0, the second series the index 1. Don't worry, FNC Chart adds those series if they don't exist. Then you specify an array with all the Y values and another array with all the X values. The data type of the Y values is doubles, and the X values, of course, as we specified up here, are date time values. A little bit tricky in this example created by TMS is the fact that load from data array does have a return value. Load from data array returns the series that is being added when loading the data, or so to speak, the data is being added to. So the series has lots and lots of properties. One of them is to specify the text that is shown in the legend of a series, legend text. And this is what TMS is doing here. They immediately assign the legend text to the series that has been added. No further customization is being done. In this example, we not only load one series, we load 2. One with the maximum temperature and another one with the minimum temperature. And that's it. If you run the example and load from the array, this is exactly what happens. You can easily verify that we have the dates right here. I started this demonstration on June 27th, so 6 days from today is June 21st. Next, let's look at comma-separated or tab-separated files. Again, the load options have special properties for these kind of files. The delimiter can be chosen, and you can say if the first line should be skipped or not, if the first line contains the labels, or if the first line already contains a value. Those two properties are specific for CSV files. Otherwise, the process is even easier than the process for the arrays. You specify a file name, and then you have to specify the column indices where the values are and where the X values are. Here the values are in the columns 2 and 3. These are zero-based indices, and the X values are in the column number 1. Looking at the comma-separated file, we confirm that on the first column we have a date, and then we have the maximum temperature and the minimum temperature values. One thing I want to emphasize, we have to set the format settings in order to make sure that the date can be interpreted correctly. The CSV file uses day, month, year separated by dashes. So this has to be included, otherwise you're not going to be able to read dates in a certain format. The use of the global format settings variable here is compatible with previous Delphi versions. With later Delphi versions, you might consider using the T format settings record. And that's how easy it is to load comma-separated files. Finally, loading from JSON is a little bit more complicated because you need to know the structure of your JSON information. Again, FNC Chart makes it easy. Here you also see an example to using loading options in a local variable that is passed to the load from JSON data method. Let's have a look at the load from JSON data call in detail. The first parameter specifies the file name, and the number of overloads makes this example a little bit more complicated. However, it's quite simple if you look at it step by step. The second parameter is the load options, as you can see here, because we created our own load options. That means this second and fourth parameter overload are the only ones that are still possible. And then the third one all points to a series name. So this name of the series is found in the forecast day property, and the hour property specifies the name of the points, and then the next array specifies the Y value names, because we have several series. We not only have one, we have the temperature in Celsius, and we have a percentage, the chance of rain. And the final parameter is yet again an array which lists the property that is being used for the X value. It's a little bit more complicated because we don't specify values, we specify the property names inside of the JSON file that contain the values. So looking at the JSON file, we find the hour property, and inside of the hour property we find the temperature in Celsius, and we also find the chance of rain. So this hierarchy is actually being used by the FNC Charts importer to display the values accordingly. Loading data from JSON shows how flexible data can be imported into FNC Charts. Even a more complicated structure that is rather common inside of a JSON document can be imported with a single line of code. Just as a reminder, FNC Charts is available for the VCL, FireMonkey, and TMS Web Core for your web application development needs. That means you can deliver your software for Microsoft Windows, Apple macOS, Linux, and even the Raspberry Pi. To find out more, go to fnc.tmssoftware.com.